Welcome to the Eclectic Thrifter and Crafter, where we thrift and craft with purpose. It's Small Talk Sunday. Finally, after all summer, we're going to jump right into it. This is a product that I use for making the paper mache. It's USG All-Purpose Joint Compound. What we're going to do today is we're going to use this Elmer's school glue and the joint compound, and we're going to make a plaster to texture the walls on the inside of the doors. Not in the rooms, because those are going to be wallpapered. This Elmer's glue I use as well as Amazon Basics, which is a little more expensive, but if you can't get to the store, Amazon Basics white glue is compatible with the joint compound. I did make the mistake of picking up washable school glue from Walmart. I discovered quickly that it is not compatible with the USG joint compound. So I donated that glue so I would not confuse it again and purchased the Elmer's glue. The joint compound that is not compatible with white school glue is DAP, which I shared with you just a few minutes ago, but also a new joint compound that has been added at Walmart. It is also packaged in a white bucket with black and red graphics. This throws off the same chemical smell as the DAP, and whatever chemical that is, it is not compatible with white school glue, and it will turn into a massive rubbery mess, and it's not good for making paper mache or anything at that point. So that's just a heads up on what products are compatible with making paper mache, as well as this little plaster that I've created for myself. The plastering of the walls has already been completed. I'm now in the phase of putting things back together on the dining table and returning the wallpaper to the walls in some of the rooms. The last thing on my list is making the stairwells that go down the center. That has not been constructed yet, but that's not going to take me too long. I have to install the windows yet. Once I finish completing those, I sort of have about 8 projects going on at the same time. But this is where I am. It is being returned to the dining room as we speak. But this is a project that I wanted to share with you in case you wanted to texture one of your miniature builds. I have basically added equal parts of the joint compound and the glue to begin with, and we're going to give it a really good mix. Then I will add joint compound until I get just the texture I want to create a faux plaster effect. I hope everyone has had a wonderful summer. It was very bizarre weather here. It delayed a few of my finishing up projects because glue and paper mache does not dry when it's cold and damp. But now we are all finished with all of that, to the point where we are beginning to reassemble in the dining room. I have a swing arm armature for my camera, and I keep forgetting it's there, and I keep bumping it with my arm, and I do apologize for that. Upstairs in the craft room, when I remember, I can attach it to a stool, but when it's connected to my countertop in the garage or in the craft room, it picks up every little bump or movement you make on the surface itself, and I haven't quite figured out how to rectify that yet. I have discovered that my KitchenAid becomes very useful not only in the kitchen but the craft room. I do have a separate beater for the garage use, so this is the beater that I keep out in the garage. I don't mix and match. So I'm going to add a little more joint compound here. I did make the executive decision a couple of weeks ago to make a new rooftop, because the first one was indeed a prototype, which was a little heavy because I had to experiment with the measurements and how to support it on the inside and everything. But the new rooftop is completing construction, and it's going to rest on dowels on top of the framework. I am using makeup sponges to spread the plaster on the walls. They are only good for this one project. They kind of fall apart toward the end, so they're not something that's going to be a keeper. You're going to have to throw them away. I'm going to mix this first batch with this new batch so it's all consistent. For this final stage, I used up the last of the joint compound and glue, ending up making 1 gallon of this plaster mix. This amount was just enough to complete all of the doors, as well as the exhibit room, servants' quarters, and attic, ceiling and walls. A few more pinches of joint compound and we should reach that consistency. It's going to look a lot like you're whipping cream or making cake batter or meringue. Now we've made our mix and we're going to get started plastering the walls. I was very happy with my results. Even though this was experimental, I knew that the joint compound and the glue would probably make a very good plaster. Give it a little bit of design to it and then we're going to set it aside to dry. Before I share the final setup in the dining room, we're going to be traveling back in time over the next couple of weeks to show you what I was able to work on when the weather was decent. This door opens up off of one of the exhibit rooms. The room above where that single window is the male servants' quarters. I had to add the little fireplace last because I wanted to make sure all the measurements were right. I'm just finishing it off with paper mache before I add the texture to the walls. There were 3 fireplaces that I added at the very end, which it was a necessity. It wasn't part of the plan in the original construction because I wasn't quite sure how I was going to do it, if I was going to inset them or just put faux fireplaces in, but because I decided to light all of the fireplaces up, I added those very last. This is just a sample of doing one of the outside doors. This is one of the fixed walls. I believe that this is the one that goes on the front of the house in front of the library and the exhibit room. The door is actually upside down so I can texture the ceiling. In this build, I often utilize yardsticks, especially for the end capping and finishing work, because they're pre-cut, pre-sanded, and easy to measure and install. I am not a carpenter, not by a long chalk. Switching out the doors, this is the door that is going to be where the Inglenook hearth is. It's a fixed wall next to the kitchen. I'm going to mark it here just slightly to show you where it's going to go. Then we're going to flip it over and texturize the second floor. This was an all-day job, but I did allow it 24 to 48 hours for the plaster to dry thoroughly. My next step was digging out the wall for the Inglenook hearth. I didn't share with you the work it went into to carve that out, but you're going to see the end result in just a few moments. And here is the texture after it's dried about 48 hours. The plaster relaxes quite nicely. I am very happy with the end result of this mixture, so the next step is to paint the walls to complement the wallpaper for each room. This is what an Inglenook hearth looks like, and that will be a project in itself on a Sunday. In the meantime, this is what I carved out right behind the chimney on the outer door. Just completing the finishing touches on getting all of it even. And next I will reseal the walls with paper mache. The finishing project for the Inglenook hearth will be for another video, and I'll share that with you very, very soon. I purchased this mold on Amazon to make the brickwork for the kitchen. It's not necessary, but I put a little bit of wood glue on the wall surfaces before I put the paper mache on. It might be overkill, but it's just what I've been doing just because it makes me more comfortable to do that. Once this dries after 48 hours, I'll get the inside of that sanded and it'll be ready to decorate with brickwork. On the right hand side of the fireplace is going to be an area for a laundry pot. We'll take advantage of our measuring cup and give that surface a little smoothness, and then we can let it dry. Well, this is what I've been up to in the last 8 weeks, various stages, waiting for it to stop raining and for it to warm up. Even though it was summer, it was a very cool and damp summer in the Pacific Northwest and not very conducive to paper mache and glue work. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Please like and subscribe. Share my thrifting and crafting channel with your thrifting and crafting friends. I welcome your thoughts and ideas in the comments below. Check us out on Instagram and tap that notification button for upcoming announcements of thrifts and crafts. But most of all, have a lovely, lovely day.